in the middle of fab for a company called Martin Guitars, which is the most legendary guitar company in America.
The popularity of chief fabricator and designer in American Chopper, Paul Teutul Jr., had immensely increased in the world of reality television after his iconic confrontation with his father, which led him to being fired from his job in front of millions of viewers. The ugly shouting match gave birth not only to several memes on social media, but also a spin-off series, American Chopper, Sr. vs. Jr., as it chronicled a motorcycle building battle between him and his father. The talented bike builder established his company called Paul Jr. Designs and made it one of the most influential chopper-style motorcycle manufacturers in the country. He further branched out into building electronic bicycles in 2021. Most people think that being the eldest son of Paul Teutul Sr., the renowned motorcycle builder, he had an easy path to success. It was the other way around, as he was already working as an apprentice to his father's steel company called Orange County Iron at the young age of 12. He worked odd jobs while learning more about welding at a vocational school and through a training course run by the Board of Cooperative Education Services in New York. Through the years, he earned his keep, proved his worth, and was later promoted to supervise the railing shop in his father's business. The Teutul's shared a common passion for motorcycles, and after business hours, his father would ask for assistance in building chopper-style motorbikes. It started as a hobby, but in 1999, they launched the company they called Orange County Choppers, or OCC, and Paul Jr. received a 20% share in the business. He has a huge talent for designing themed motorcycles, and his father realized this from the get-go. In the 2000s, cable television started offering reality TV shows, mostly primarily focused on professionals doing daily business transactions, and OCC was one of the first motorcycle manufacturing shops that had a TV series created just for them. American Chopper first aired a 2-part pilot episode in the latter part of 2002, and with high TV ratings the night it was shown, Discovery Channel greenlighted 23 episodes to complete its first season. It premiered in March 2003 and became one of the most viewed shows on the cable network. Going through their successful 5th year in TV in 2008, the show had drastic changes when Paul Jr. was fired on national TV by his father, following a furious argument, one of the biggest fallouts seen on TV. Discovery Channel worked out a way so that Paul Jr. could continue to fulfill his contractual obligation to the network, working as an independent consultant and mostly filmed without his father on the scene. Eventually leaving the show after he finished his contract, Paul waited to complete the 1-year covenant to not compete clause he signed with OCC before he launched his own company in 2010 called Paul Jr. Designs, or PJD. Former OCC colleagues Vincent DiMartino and Cody Connolly worked with him for a while as a mechanic or assembler, along with his wife Rachel Teutul, who served as the company's vice president, and Brian Baker as operations director. He also worked with outside contractors such as Brandon Thompson as fabricator and Nub Collard as painter or graphic artist. It didn't take long for him to realize that his potential to do more as a fabricator and designer had been suppressed when working in the toxic working environment of his father's company. Without anyone continually hovering on his back, his business flourished, with clients pouring in not only from the US but also from other countries. Due to this freedom Paul Jr. enjoyed in his own company, he was able to fully tap into his creativity and ingenuity. He eventually branched out and put up another company called PJG Studios, which, instead of focusing solely on motorcycles, offered artist-driven services, including conceptual design, visual effects, 2D or 3D animation, CGI with live action, and branding. They created stories brought to life with the help of the client's vision, with Paul Jr.'s wife heading the company as director for operations. With so much interest in the controversial issues between Paul Jr. and his father, Discovery Channel, through the production company of Pilgrim Films and Television, offered them starring roles in a spin-off series called American Chopper, Sr. vs. Jr. Even if father and son weren't seeing eye to eye, they both agreed, since it would continue to make both their companies relevant. Aside from additional income from appearance fees, the TV exposure aided them as their marketing tool to promote their bike builds. Here are some of the popular PJD builds that were featured in the show. In 2009, Paul Jr. was commissioned by the Government Employees Insurance Company, or GEICO, to build a military-inspired bike as a tribute to the men and women in the U.S. Armed Forces for their sacrifices at home and beyond. The company has a long relationship with the military, and PJD understood this connection. Paul Jr. incorporated 5 medallions to represent 5 branches of the military, with an infrared sensor for heat patterns. The bike was painted green with a Geico lizard tail-shaped rear fender, and was unveiled at a Motley Crue concert during the Sturgis Rally, aired in October 2010. Cadillac Marketing asked for a classic Cadillac-inspired masterpiece, which they auctioned off to benefit the Cure Duchenne charity group. It was to raise funds and spread awareness of a progressive type of muscular dystrophy disease called Duchenne. The bike had black diamond paint incorporating the Cadillac V-Series insignia. The trunk badges and taillights design were inspired by a CTS sedan's wide rear fender. It was featured in the 2011 season finale of American Chopper Sr. vs. Jr. After the separation of Paul Jr. from his father, the Anti-Venom bike was the first build he had that fully showcased his talent under the PJD brand. Most of the bikes he designed and built were left in the showroom of Orange County Choppers. This bike build was significant, as it symbolized his freedom and his new outlook on life. He said in an interview, "My father firing me seemed bad at the time, but it was probably one of the best things that happened to me. It was freeing." His love for the spiderweb design was shown here, and is like a brother to the Black Widow bike he designed, shown in the first 2 episodes that aired in the original series of American Chopper back in 2003. The Anti-Venom became Paul Jr. Design's signature bike. If there was one bike that promoted Paul Teutul Jr. to one of the most prominent figures in the motorcycle building industry, it was the Black Widow bike. It was also the reason that the show was one of the most watched automated reality TV shows in cable history, as it was the first bike build they displayed in a series. The spiderweb-inspired bike was a spectacular showpiece that never failed to attract attention, even when it was placed in a showroom full of other motorcycles. When Paul settled his lawsuit with his father, one of the things he demanded was the Black Widow bike, and it was granted. It was quite funny and sad that when he went to fetch it from Orange County Choppers, his father made sure Paul had to go through the entire shop just to get it, which he didn't like, but endured just to retrieve the bike. He had always dreamt of having the Black Widow and the Anti-Venom displayed side by side in PJD's showroom. Next, while this specific bike wasn't built in Teutul's American Chopper franchise series, it needs to be included on Paul's most popular builds list. In 2014, Blizzard Entertainment, maker of the popular computer game called World of Warcraft, collaborated with Paul Jr. Designs to build 2 motorcycles. One was the Alliance-themed bike, and the other the Horde-themed bike. Blizzard fans would determine which of the 2 bikes went into the game. Paul Jr. was really ecstatic that he was given the chance to do it, because Blizzard gave him carte blanche when it came to the creative aspect of the design. He assembled 2 teams to work on the 2 bikes, and they finished the job in 5 weeks, with Paul and his team incorporating all that symbolized the World of Warcraft with its native races, including orcs, trolls, goblins, and other fantasy creatures. In the end, the Blizzard online community chose Team Horde. Looking to expand his business in 2020, Paul Jr. reached out to Rough Cycles, a German e-bike lifestyle brand that took the international bike industry by storm with its popular designs such as Lil Buddy and the Ruffian. Petar Pero-Desnica, the founder and CEO of Rough Cycles, agreed to the collaboration proposal, as most of the people in his company were fans of Paul Jr. and were proud that he'd chosen their company. Paul was happy, as he knew that it would be a great help in widening his market, saying, "This product is a great opportunity for my designs to be available to the incredible fanbase that has supported me for all these years." Paul acknowledged the fact that not everyone could easily ride motorcycles, but anyone could ride a bicycle. They immediately went to work, Paul saying that his design for the first e-bike collaboration was inspired by his Build-Off 2 competition with Gas Monkey Garage, OCC, and Jesse James in 2012, which he won. After the collaboration was announced to the public, and even without sharing any photos of the PJDE Ruffian e-bike, Ruffian Cycles already received many pre-orders for the amount of $8,000. When it was unveiled and released in March 2021, the European version of the e-bike had a top speed of up to 25 km per hour, or around 15.5 miles per hour, because most Europeans didn't seem to like that much speed. Fans believed that the American version would be a bit faster, for the speed lunatics. The e-bikes that they produced were the result of the ingenuity of German engineering, along with the unique creativity of the American designs that Paul Jr. and his team provided. The Teutul's family drama had actually taken reality television to another level. Paul Sr.'s dysfunctional relationship with his children was an unexpected goldmine from an executive producer's standpoint, but quite a sad scenario at the same time, as many viewers were able to relate to them for some reason. Theirs was a typical story of a father who grew up with a serious problem with alcohol and drugs. In the early 2000s, he was convinced by his wife to enter rehab, but couldn't because it would mean having to leave his business for a lengthy period, which he felt was something he couldn't afford. He would show up at work every single day, even if he had the flu or a broken arm. So instead of rehab, he joined Alcoholics Anonymous, AA. It took him a while, but in January 2009, he was completely sober. Unfortunately, the damage had been done, and his past mistakes had made a lasting negative impression on his family, particularly his children. Being the eldest, Paul Jr. had seen and experienced all of it, and eventually succumbed to drug addiction himself, but successfully entered rehab at a young age, and later developed a personal relationship with God that helped him battle his way out of drug addiction completely. The flare-ups between father and son, along with the lawsuits that they filed against each other, were a direct result of his exposure to the problematic years his father had when he was growing up. While the fans acknowledged that the love was there between them, too many hurts in the past had clouded their judgment and impaired their communication. His relationship with Paul Sr. wasn't completely mended, but it wasn't that worrisome anymore. They agreed that working together prevented them from reaching any compromise, and while they'd established a bike-building empire while working together, it had cost them their relationship. Paul's youngest brother, Mikey, who was part of their TV series too as the shop's assistant general manager, inherited his father's alcohol addiction, but still provided some comic relief in the show, making the TV series less tense, as Paul Sr. had a different relationship with his youngest son. Mikey could shout and make demands of his father without the other becoming upset and offended. For whatever reason, his father treated Mikey with kid gloves. Paul Jr. never displayed jealousy about it, and in fact, when Mikey was eventually forced out from OCC, he joined his oldest brother's new business. Paul Jr. understood him best and supported his decisions, even when Mikey left him to launch his own business later on. While the Tuttles might have a volatile relationship, viewers also witnessed how they showed a united front when helping other members of the family. For instance, when his grandmother asked for help in shoveling snow during one winter, both Paul Jr. and Sr. were there happily working together while clearing cars with snow. The same thing happened when the Tuttles had to assemble a swing and slide set for his niece, Dan Tuttle's daughter. While they liked to banter who was better at it and who proved to be a nuisance, the Tuttle men can be like any regular family out there. As long as nobody talked about the motorcycle business, Paul Jr. met his wife Rachel Beester on the set of their TV series American Chopper during an episode in the 5th season, which featured McCuff Industries. The Tuttles built the McCuff bike with Paul Jr.'s design, and Rachel is one of the McCuff girls who was sent to help promote the product. They started dating and were married in August 2010 at a boathouse chapel overlooking the beach at the Bonnet Island estate in New Jersey. It was at the peak of the legal dispute between the Tuttles. Nevertheless, Paul Jr. invited his father to the wedding, but he declined. After 5 years, the couple had a son named Hudson Seven Tuttle. Rachel opened her own business, a clothing and gift shop called Oliver Ann, located at the historic village on Clinton Street, Montgomery, New York State, near Paul Jr.'s workshop. His wife's little boutique was such a hit that it was voted more than once as the best boutique, best gift shop, and best women's wear in the Hudson Valley. Paul Jr.'s appearances in the TV series American Chopper promoted his skills as a designer and fabricator, which considerably benefited his market reach. When he went solo, his net worth eventually increased significantly, and as of late 2021, his personal wealth is estimated by authoritative sources at over $2 million and climbing steadily.
Thank you for spending some time with us. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another video. We also handpick these videos which we recommend you watch next. You can talk to us on all social medias or ask a question in the comments below. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you back tomorrow.